This podcast is for educational purposes only, does not constitute legal advice, and does not create an attorney-client relationship. If you need legal assistance about a legal problem, contact an attorney.
Good afternoon, Mr. Bertolino. Thank you so much for being here with us today. How are you doing?
I'm great. I'm doing very well.
Good. We are very excited to have you on the show today. For our viewers who don't know, Mr. Bertolino is our founder and managing partner of the Bertolino Law Firm, a professional licensed defense firm located in Austin, Texas. We will talk a little bit more about the firm in a moment, but before we do, Mr. Bertolino, can you give us a little background on yourself and how you got involved in the legal industry?
Yeah, of course. Well, it really started probably in high school. I was a debater, and I did very, very well, and won many awards. Went on to college and continued to venture into debate, and actually won nationals in the mid '90s
Wow.
at Washington State, and so that's really where I got, the bug bit me, and I really begin to value and really love arguing. And the next logical step in my life was, law school and to be an attorney. So it really stemmed from there, that starting point of my life and being interested in law. And then, of course, back then the incentive was to, win those trophies and those awards and those ribbons and the accolades that came with it. And being able to go up to the stage and grab your trophy and be recognized by your peers how well you did in a debate tournament. And then and of course, back then the payout was trophies, and today it's revenue. And
Right.
so it was a nice next logical step in my life. And that's really where it all started. And then, of course, from high school, graduated from high school, attended St. Mary's University, and received my bachelor's degree and my master's. I also obtained a master's degree in public administration. And then there was a period of time where my ex-wife and we owned a long-term assisted living facility in San Antonio. And so I was really involved heavily in medicine, even because my ex-wife at the time, even still, is a registered nurse. And so we were heavily involved in that facility. But my life was unfulfilled. Again, I got bit by that bug early in my life in high school, and being involved in debate. And I felt like throughout that period in my life, I just needed to do something different. And kept pestering my ex-wife about, hey, I need to go to law school. I need to go. I want to practice law. And finally, in 1999 is when I applied for law school, and I attended South Texas College of Law, and pursued not just my education there, but got involved in mock trial and moot court, and did very well in those areas as well. Won second place in the intramural moot court in my law school. Really didn't do a whole lot of mock trial and moot court outside of law school. Had the opportunity, but didn't really pursue it much. I was more concerned about, learning the law and attending classes and doing what I needed to do there, and really learned from my professors. But yeah, that's sort of where all that stems from in my life.
That's awesome. So it's almost like when I was a kid, my parents used to tell me, you love to argue so much, It's almost like the boy who loved to argue, he grew up to become
Yeah,
an
exactly.
attorney. Well, that's
Exactly.
really awesome though. It's sounds like that bug stayed with you for a long time. I
Oh,
mean,
no,
goodness,
really
now
did. It
you
really
now are the
did.
managing partner, of your own firm. And so Bertolino Law Firm specializes in professional licensed defense. Can you talk a little bit more about that area of law?
Yeah, administrative law is sort of a general area of law that governs the administration and regulation of government agencies, regulatory agencies. And it could be administrative law in those areas could be both state and federal. We handle, of course, the state level only. We don't do any federal law cases or federal administrative law cases. And more specifically, licensed defense, which is sort of a subset of administrative law. It caught my attention probably back in early 2000s, 2005-ish, 2004, 2005. After I graduated from law school, I actually moved my family to Austin and got a first-year associate's position at a law firm called Hilgers and Watkins, which is it's no longer around. It ended up merging with a bigger firm, and that's where I sort of got my feet wet for the that first year, really learning how to practice law and to litigate. And then after a year of working at that firm, I just felt I didn't like it. The big firm life wasn't for me. I was more interested in really having more time with my family and really having my own thing, and being my own boss. And so after a year, I left them and hung my shingle out and started a solo practice. Started off, of course, by myself. It was a little sort of one-room office space in a refurbished home off of Guadalupe Street in downtown Austin. If you can imagine one of those historic homes, those really beautiful historical homes that's converted into offices. Well, I had like a little cubicle kind of office space. It was my own, but it was, it was mine. And I was, I started practicing general law. Like to joke about it and call it door law. Basically take anything that comes in the door. And I had to start somewhere. And, I took, immigration cases, personal injury cases, a lot of divorce and child support cases, which really also, got my beak wet a little bit with learning, the practice of law itself in trial settings, litigation settings, and arguing before the court and a judge and with opposing counsel. And that's really that's, believe it or not, doing a lot of family law cases to help develop that skill. For the most part, unless you're a criminal defense lawyer or a criminal prosecutor, you're not in court very often. Of course, depending on, of course, what specialize or what practice area, because of course, personal injury lawyers are in court. But for the most part, I found that is really what helped me develop those skill sets early on. And that's really, what caught my attention. And of course, what happened, when around the time, early mid-20s, 2000, 2004, 2005, after I started practicing on my own, my ex-wife had a friend of hers. Of course, at that time, my ex-wife was working at a hospital facility as a nurse, and she had a friend who was an RN, a single mom, who had just received a complaint notice from the Board of Nursing. And of course, I never done this area before. It was brand new to me. And, and of course, I was practicing door law. And this is one of the cases that, swung the door open for me, and took the case on and researched it out, learned the procedures, began talking with opposing counsel, the staff attorney for the Board of Nursing, and ended up getting it dismissed. And
Awesome.
the nurse friend of my ex-wife, she was extremely grateful, in tears.
Oh, I'm sure.
And
Yeah.
I mean, you can imagine, she was, this is what her livelihood is, just what she depended on to support her children. And and it really started from there. It was sort of, it just really blossomed. She started referring work to me, and I started getting some more nursing cases. It was actually in Houston is where that really originated. And I started getting more and more cases from the medical complex, and in Houston. It's got one of the biggest medical complexes in the world there, and it was a really good, nice pool of potential nurse clients there, and started getting started building that practice. And just over the years, began developing that niche, and eventually the niche became a true niche. I was still, of course, I needed to continue to grow the firm and make money and support my family at the time. So I kept taking these other cases. But over time, I started, realizing the importance of niching the practice and really letting go those immigration cases, those family law cases, and focus on one practice area, and become an expert, so to speak, in one practice area, a go-to person, a go-to law firm. And yeah, and then I realized that this old adage, that the niches lead to the riches. And you start developing a niche, people are going to start respecting that, and you're the go-to person for that. So yeah, that's sort of I guess, a long version of how this all caught my interest.
That's a great start, especially knowing you won your first case. That's just awesome.
Oh yeah,
Right.
it was, and it was, I mean, incredibly rewarding. Being able to
Definitely.
get that feedback from her. I mean, and of course, I realize that you can't get paid with compliments. You
Right.
still need to.
Unfortunately.
Yeah, exactly. So I understood that, and of course, the compliment was nice and all, but I
Yeah.
also realized that I had work to do to build the firm and build the practice and get out there and get some more. But it was really nice to have that. And it's a nice little, I guess it's a little spillover from what this firm does, and and helping people, and really, really, I mean, impacting and making a difference in people's lives, and I mean, people make mistakes. I mean, it happens all the time, and to really punish someone for a mistake, that's fixable. Um, it's unfortunate that many times that happens to these clients, and mistakes will happen, and it's rewarding when you're able to help and assist a client and fix those mistakes, and explain how you need to do better next time, and of
Right.
course, coupled with them not necessarily being hit hard with a sanction by that particular regulatory agency.
Or their license being revoked completely.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So you mentioned that it's a niche area of law. So it sounds like license holders may not be able to just call any attorney and they know how to assist with this problem. Is that correct?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's definitely an area that requires legal representation. And talking to clients, a lot of times, there are two main reasons that I'm finding when I speak to a potential new client. A lead, a qualified lead, or whatever you want to call it. And when speaking to them about the need to hire counsel, I would be able to possibly put them into two categories. The first category are these license holders, these potential new clients that are under the impression that they can handle it on their own, and
Mhm.
they don't need a lawyer, and they'll be able to save some money, and handle it, that they look at it as a minor thing, and they could just
Mhm.
resolve it with a phone call. That's a big mistake. I mean, it's one of those deals where, and of course, I've mentioned to them in many occasions where I've had potential new clients that have told me that they have represented themselves, and at the end of the call, I thought in my mind, well, they just put their foot in their mouth. They just, admitted to things they didn't have to admit, and really hurt themselves. And that's one category that I'm seeing, these potential clients who think they can handle their matters pro se. That other category are those that are under the impression that if they hire a lawyer, they're going to look like they're evading or trying to hide something from the agency. So they're under the
Yeah.
impression that by hiring a lawyer, oh, I'm guilty. I'm going to look guilty because I hired a lawyer to help me with this. And I'm going to have to explain to them, no, 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 that's not the case. In fact, in many situations, there's encouragement to hire a lawyer
Mhm.
because, a lawyer won't necessarily muck it up. These agencies, they have a process that they follow. They don't really like to detour from those processes. They like to, and of course these license holders that think they can handle on their own, and they start represent themselves, it just causes more headache for these agencies, and there's no flow and continuity in their
Mhm.
processes any further, because they're not dealing with a lawyer that knows their processes and their
Right.
rules and their procedural rules. So those are sort of the two categories that I'm finding that of potential new clients that are reluctant to hire counsel. But at the end of the day, it's going to be so important and necessary to hire good counsel that's well experienced and have good contacts and good relationships with these agencies and boards.
Would you have any advice or any particular questions to ask or things to look for when license holders are seeking counsel?
I think the number one thing that, of course, above, the qualities of a lawyer and a law firm of good reputation and trustworthiness and good ethics and, all those really standard kind of things that people should always look for in an attorney or a law firm. Aside from that, probably the biggest one is probably just straight up experience in this area. There's a lot of attorneys out there that still practice door law, and I don't recommend, that you hire a lawyer that, sort of that has a practice of them, they don't really have a focused practice. They handle multiple areas of law and represent a variety of different types of clients, and I think it really comes down to looking for a highly experienced, knowledgeable attorney who knows what they're doing and is not just familiar with the substantive laws and the procedural rules, but is also familiar with these staff attorneys and these investigators and believe it or not, as a firm like ours, we build really good relationships with opposing counsels and board investigators. And I'm not saying that to say that, our firm's above the law or that we're not, that we're getting special treatment from these licensing agencies. I'm not saying that at all, but it's always good to have a good rapport, a good relationship, good mutual kind of respect between these agencies, because we've been practicing against them and with them for many, many years. So yeah, I think the most important thing to look for is good, solid experience and knowledge in the area.
It makes sense. You want someone who's familiar with, the staff and staff's familiar with them. And like you said, can avoid some of those things getting kind of mucky and kind of muddied waters. So definitely, a great tip and something to look for, I would say, in any lawyer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure.
Well, Mr. Bertolino, we thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us this afternoon. You are a delight to have on the show. You've given our viewers a lot of really good information and just great knowledge to take home with them. We'd love to have you back for a future episode.
Yes,
if
definitely. I'd love to be back.
You are willing.
Love to be back.
Empower your professional journey. Know your regulator, the podcast that inspires you to engage.